Yo, what's going on, guys? Crispy Flakes here. So the Dallas Mavericks just ended up losing by about 1 billion points to the Dallas Mavericks. And I'm not going to lie, I'm making this video as the game is going on. So for some reason, they come back from, what's the score at the moment, guys? 116 to 63. I will not post this video. But I don't think that is going to happen. That would literally be absolutely crazy though, right, man? But okay, so I think this game has to be like literally the definition of don't overreact to the beginning of the NBA season, which honestly, this being the third game of the Clippers, it's still the very beginning of the NBA season. So even this right here, is probably an overreaction on top of an overreaction. But you also have to consider that Kawhi Leonard did not play, which is kind of important, right, man? But we'll get into all that. Okay, so starting off this season, the Clippers beat the Lakers 116-109. Damn, bro, Paul George, 33.6 rebounds. Killing it out there, right, man? Playoff P. They follow up on Christmas Day, beating the Denver Nuggets, 121-108. 2-0 all of a sudden, man. This team's looking fantastic, right? And obviously, now the game going on, Dallas Mavericks, it's like 2 steps forward, 17 steps back, or however many points they're losing by. It's definitely not 17. It's a lot more than that at this point, right, man? But yeah, so what is the difference right now between this Clippers team? Like, what are like some like the early red flags? Because if it was like a 10-point victory or a 10-point loss, I would not be making this video. If it was Kawhi Leonard was not playing, it was like a 15-point loss, I would not be making this video. But the fact that you like literally get your score pretty much doubled, that's more so, that goes beyond just Kawhi Leonard wasn't playing. Unless Kawhi Leonard is literally the MVP of MVPs of MVPs, then maybe you can make that case. But there's a lot of other issues with this team that I'm kind of seeing early on, man. Okay, so I think the first one that I have to talk about, because I know a lot of people like my opinion on this guy, is Luke Kennard. Luke Kennard is not looking as good as he was on the Detroit Pistons. Now, a big reason behind that is that when he did look good last season on the Pistons, it is because, well, for one, he only did play like 25 games before going down with a knee injury. But also, he was part of a team that just wasn't very good. So, anything he did out there looked that much better. But all of a sudden, you replace Kawhi Leonard with Luke Kennard. And it's like, okay, well, Luke didn't really play all that good out there, man. At the making of this, he has 7 points, 2 rebounds on 3 for 10 shooting. Pretty much the shooting stroke for him, he just has not really been able to get it. He looks a step slower out there. A lot of that could be the knee injury still kind of lingering to him, man. But I mean, I'm not just trying to juice up Luke Kennard, guys. Luke Kennard is a good NBA player. He's just playing really bad. So I think someday, assuming he doesn't have like some long-lasting knee injury, I'm assuming someday you guys on the Clippers will get to see good Luke Kennard. You guys will know what I'm talking about, right, man? Now, is he the next coming of LeBron James? Well, okay, maybe not that. But yes, he played piss poor. Luke Kennard's not the greatest defender out there. So I think instantly, replacing Kawhi Leonard with Luke, you're going to see that lack of defense, which obviously losing this bad, yeah, defense was definitely an issue. Another issue I have, or another thing I'm kind of seeing early on, is just like Kawhi cannot really load manage if he wants his team to be successful. I mean, that was the big issue going into, well, obviously this is not really load management. He literally got freaking spiked in the face by Serge Ibaka. So, he kind of has an excuse with that when he had like 8 stitches or something. So not quite load managing, but I think just seeing in general, we can see how quickly, especially in the case of the Clippers, that injury or load management can deteriorate the roster, right? Because Paul George, he's just not a number 1 option. He's not. He is one of the best number 2 options that plays great next to a number 1 option. But if he was the focus point of your offense, it just doesn't lead to success, man. I mean, you look back when he was on the Pacers, like the Pacers were good, but when push came to shove, it was always like LeBron James or whatever beat up on him, right? He just could never get his team past as the number 1 guy. Like I said, I like him as number 2. Playoff time, that's a bit of a different story. But yeah, Paul George was atrocious in this game. Couldn't knock down his 3-point shot. Was turning over the basketball. It just wasn't really a good circumstance, right? And then you look as far as Lou Williams. I mean, Lou Williams, man, was like 6th man of the year for so long. Like, he was like the go-to guy off the bench. Like, if you had Lou Williams in your team, you were getting damn 20 piece every single night. He just looks old. He looks like he's ready to retire. I don't know if it's just if he's just unmotivated, if he's, maybe just not really liking the chemistry with the Clippers, which is probably its own issue within itself. Lou Williams just is not looking like a very good basketball player, man. Patrick Beverley is looking like a backup point guard, if that, at least in this game. Listen, man, this is all pretty much referred to this game because obviously the first two games they looked good. This is an overreaction, right, man? But it's still pretty embarrassing to lose that bad. I think another issue, too, as much as Clipper fans are not going to want to admit this, but I think this team is heavily, heavily, heavily going to miss Montrezl Harrell. Because the thing about Harrell that I love so much about him is that your starters could get off to a really bad start. It's just the game's not going your way. Then all of a sudden, Montrezl Harrell goes into the game, and it's like a whole new lineup out there because he's bringing this whole new spark of energy. It's what makes a six-man a great six-man, is that when you have that high energy, just like motivation that the other team's bench doesn't have, it's just like having another starter out there. It's not even like a starter, man. It's just like, I would say the six-man of the year, in my opinion, is about as valuable as any all-star player. Because it's that important in just like the swing and the tempo of the game, which that's what the game of basketball is all about, man. It's all about the tempo, right? It's all about who can do what. And it's about who can do it the best. And, who can go on these runs and everything, right, man? So you have that to consider. But I don't know, man. Like, Nicholas Batum looks like a guy that was once good on the Portland Trail Blazers. And then he just, like, he got that really bad contract and he just stopped caring about basketball. I mean, he's fine. Like, I'm not going to hate too much on Batum in this case because it's not like he's getting paid a lot of money. Like, the Charlotte Hornets contract, that was atrocious. But as far as him being on the Clippers, like, I still like him. But, a bit different than your Marcus Morris, you might say. Serge Ibaka, I still think is a good fit on this team. Like, there was not really like any big time issues with Serge Ibaka this game. Obviously, they'll be in the center and maybe not playing as good of interior defense as he should have. At the making this man, 13 points, 9 rebounds, so he's fine. Didn't knock down his 3-point shots though. He was 0 for 4 on that, so that is kind of a point of emphasis with his. It's like with Serge over Montrez. With Montrez, you always got the guy on the inside that brought you the energy and would still figure out to get you like 17 and 8 somehow. Serge Ibaka might not be like as high energy guy, but the things he could do on the court offensively kind of impacts the game a little bit better as far as like some man like stretch on the floor and stuff like that. So that was obviously a big time issue with this game. But I don't know, man. I will say straight up, this Clippers team, despite the very hot 2-0 start, which in my opinion was like, well, I want to take it with a grain of salt because they were playing against a Lakers team that's probably so unmotivated right now, man. That team's probably just like, yo, let's get into the playoffs, guys. And of course, the Denver Nuggets, that was just like a nice win. Like, you can't really fault them for that, right? But I will say, we got you definitely have like red flag alert going on with this team, man, going like into the rest of the season, or at least early on. And in my opinion, what do they need to do? It's literally the same thing I was saying last year, man. Because to me, this Clippers team does not really have like a great leader. I don't think Kawhi and Paul George are good leaders. They are fantastic basketball players, but you're not a good leader, which is sometimes just okay. That's just kind of how guys are. I mean, Kawhi is a bit of a goofy, quieter type of guy, and Paul George is Paul George. I think is probably the best way to put him at this point, man. And then Patrick Beverley, like, he's the point guard, but he ain't really a point. He's just a guard. And I think there's something to be said about that. Going back to last season, I said this team needs to go out there and they need to get, like, a guy that can give you, like, 16 points and 8 assists, which point guards like that are, they're not, I mean, when you have one, you want to keep them around, but there's definitely trades to be had. Maybe not this case because they traded literally every single pick until 2030 for Paul George. But I just think they need like that low-key third option point guard. I'm sure you guys already know who I'm talking about. Well, actually, I have two guys in this case. I feel like there's two trades that could be done right here, man. That can go out there and be that third string guy, run the offense, or not third string, but third option, run the offense. And then like if Kawhi's out for a game with a busted up face, or if Paul George is like load managing or whatever, just because like he feels like taking a night off or whatever, man, then that third option point guard can still play like a second option. And in my mind, there's two guys that this team needs to go for. Okay, this is my option B right here, just because like I don't know if they really have the assets to get them. Option B would be Kemba Walker. The Boston Celtics look really good, and it's almost to the point where you look at once Kemba comes back, is like, well, how does Kemba really fit in with the Boston Celtics, right? So I feel like that is an option, is to go for him somehow. The Celtics probably could use like some guys off the bench, so maybe like some Lou Williams and some other guys or whatever. I feel like they could. I mean, it's gonna take more than that. Like I'm not just saying just Lou Williams. Like it would have to be like a multiple piece trade to get Kemba Walker. But that's the thing. Like this team outside of like Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, they don't have like a ton of assets. They don't have like a ton of good young players that would intrigue the Celtics to give up Kemba Walker, because you got to keep in mind they're also going for a championship. So it's like, well, we're not going to give you Kemba Walker for nothing. Like, we'll keep him around. Having Kemba be the fourth option on this team is better than just not having him at all, right? The other guy getting up there in age that I mentioned before is the man Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry, to me, would literally make this team, in my opinion, maybe not the favorite, but like top 2 favorite in the Western Conference. I love everything that Kyle Lowry brings to the game of basketball, and the Raptors would not let go of him very easy. But the thing about him is, like, unless, by like the trade deadline, unless like the Raptors are sought as a team that can win the championship, maybe they'll be like, hey, like, we're going to move on. Maybe we'll get some assets for Kyle Lowry. We know he's getting up there in age, but man, I would love to see him on this team, obviously with the chemistry with Kawhi Leonard and Serge Ibaka. But like I was saying too, even in a game against the Dallas Mavericks where you get absolutely blown out, give me Kyle Lowry and Paul George and Serge Ibaka and Luke Kennard, and it's not going to be this bad, man. He's going to be a leader out there. He's not going to let this team, fizz out after the damn first quarter or whatever. So the Clippers, it was a really bad loss. Is it the end of the world? No. But do we see red flags that are potentially, man, could kind of pop up sooner rather than later? I think definitely so, man. Hope you guys all enjoyed this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and peace out, my friends.